The Trump administration has revealed a policy change that will enable some tax-exempt groups to no longer identify contributors to their federal tax officials. The policy was announced by Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, and it means that groups such as the National Rifle Association, the NRA, can conceal the names of donors who contribute $5,000 or more from the IRS. So this change drew protests Tuesday from campaign finance watchdogs, and people feel as though this limits accountability. This limits transparency. The Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, he celebrated the decision. He celebrated this announcement, saying that the IRS fails to protect this private information from leaking to the army of angry left-wing activists who stand eager to harass and bully anyone who's contributing to national conversations with political views that they disagree with.
See, you know, like one way you can tell whether some kind of agenda or some sort of new policy standpoint is bullshit, when the motive is false, when what they're basing it on is either propaganda or a false narrative or false information. Because that whole thing about, because you know what he's referencing. That's referencing the whole IRS looking into nonprofit organizations to make sure they're actually behaving like nonprofit organizations in order to get their tax exempt status.
Right.
Now, when the IRS was doing that, they actually were even-handed. They actually went after more what you would call progressive or liberal groups than conservative groups. It was like I can't remember the percentage, but it was like 55-45 or 60-40. So it was actually more, and they were targeting groups with certain names and making sure that they were operating the way that they should. But it wasn't targeting conservatives. So that's that's one sign that could tell you that this whole thing is based on some nefarious motives, because what they're using to push this agenda is completely false.
They're capitalizing on a particular representative that made some headlines recently, and that was Representative Maxine Walters. And you remember she encouraged people to, if they have a problem with these governmental figures that are making life difficult and implementing very harmful policies, let them know about it in public. You know, go protest them if you see them. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of your First Amendment rights. So, of course, conservatives were outraged at that whole premise, outraged that you could actually make people uncomfortable, even though through, you know, the administration's policies, they're making other people uncomfortable.
But that had to do with policies and not who they donated money to as far as organizations. That had to do with, I guess, confronting leadership,
right?
Not just confronting regular citizens. That had to do with confronting leadership. And of course, again, I'll bring up again them citing the whole IRS targeting conservative groups. If that is the reason, then why is there concern like regular citizens? Because that case had to do with organizations. That had to do with the political organization itself or the nonprofit itself. It didn't have to do with the people who donated. But so it wasn't people being targeted. So to use that as a reason is bogus.
Yeah,
because
it's a fallacy.
It's a fallacy.
But it's a fallacy because, well, again, they're using her comments to, I guess, excuse this or to make this relevant, to make it so that this needs to be done, because we don't want people just harassing innocent civilians because of their donations. Okay, so the Treasury Department, they said that the donor information was never subject to the public public disclosure. So, although the tax returns of nonprofit groups are public record, they have to scrub it. They have to black out the actual donor information. That's actually never released. If it's not a policy to actually release the donor information, then what's the worry? What's the worry then?
I think I know the worry.
Regular people aren't going to be harassed because of this, because nobody's going to know that they actually donated money.
Because it's not about regular people.
No, it's not about.
It's about regular people. So when they say about being harassed. They really just mean that they don't want anybody to hold them accountable.
What will now be allowed to happen is that more and more dark money will be funneled into these groups, and more dark money will be funded into elections, into the campaigns the campaigns of individuals that are trying to get elected. So we won't know now if the money is even coming from overseas. We won't know what kind of groups it's coming from, what kind of people they're coming from, because all of it will be dark. And it is illegal for some money to coming from overseas and fund some of these elections. That's illegal. But how would the government have any way of knowing that if donor information isn't actually provided to the IRS? How would they have a way of knowing that? This is Citizens United on steroid. The number one issue in politics is money in politics. And the Trump administration just made it that much. They just made the problem that much worse. We already had a problem with dark money. We already had that problem. Now it's like, oh, gates wide open. We don't even want to see foreign money coming into the country. We don't want to see the foreign money coming into these elections. Nah, it's all good. Spend as much as you want. We don't care where it's coming from. Have a field day. And they're trying to sell that to the regular American populace, saying that, hey, you don't want your donations getting out there into public and just regular people protesting against you, regular person.
Oh,
please, man, get out of here, man.
Oh, they're using that hardworking Americans might be affected by this trope.
That's right. That's
okay.
right.
Yeah.
And again, like you said it before, the whole thing that Representative Maxine Waters was talking about was not regular people. She was talking about people that are actually involved in making decisions or actually speaking to these decisions that are being made.
So pretty much kind of two of the main points they're using in support of this new kind of tax policy is based on two main false narratives. And that's the whole people being harassed and then the IRS targeting specifically conservative, non-profit groups. So